My name is Myra Enfield. I am 32 years old. A week ago, my mother showed up at my front door in a silk blouse and fresh manicure, asking to see my baby. I looked at her. Jasmine perfume, pearl earrings, the smile she saves for fundraisers. I said 2 words that ended 29 years of pretending. "What baby?" She stared at me like I had lost my mind. Maybe I had, or maybe I had finally found it. Because 5 days earlier, while I was in labor at 39 weeks, my family had 16 people over for dinner. I called my mother from the hallway. She told me to call a cab. But that was just the beginning. What happened after I drove myself to the hospital, alone, at 9:40 on a Saturday night, changed everything I thought I knew about the people who raised me. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. This is the place where family secrets come to light. Boundaries get drawn, and silence hits harder than shouting. If you have ever felt invisible in your own family, this one is for you. Drop a comment below and be sure to subscribe. Let's get into it. I grew up in Westbrook, Connecticut. 4-bedroom colonial. In-ground pool, 2 Lexus sedans in the driveway. From the outside, the Enfield family had it all. My father, Gerald, owned a mid-size construction supply company, Enfield and Associates. Decent reputation, solid contracts, enough revenue to keep Judith Enfield comfortable. That was my mother. Full-time director of the family image, fundraising chair at Grace Lutheran. Country club membership she renewed every January like a sacred vow. Then there was Victoria, my sister. 5 years younger, 10 times more visible. Victoria worked in communications at Dad's company. The title was generous. The real job was showing up, looking polished, smiling at clients. She was good at it. And then there was me, Myra, structural engineer. I worked at a firm in Hartford, 40 minutes from the house I grew up in. I put myself through school on scholarships and weekend shifts at a hardware store. Nobody handed me a job title. Here's the thing about the Enfield house. Nobody ever said out loud that I mattered less. It was quieter than that, more surgical. My mother would introduce guests to Victoria first. Always. "This is my daughter Victoria. She runs our communications." And then, only if someone asked, "Oh, and Myra, she does engineering." I did not notice it for years. I thought it was just how families worked. The pretty one gets the spotlight. The quiet one holds the ladder. Nathan's mother was the one who made me see it. Dolores Reeves. 60 years old, retired school nurse, 0 tolerance for nonsense. She came to Thanksgiving once, sat through 3 hours of Judith narrating Victoria's charity gala, and on the drive home, she turned to me in the back seat. "Honey, does your mother always introduce Victoria first?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. I need to go back further, to the birthday that still sits in my chest like a stone. I was 10. Gerald came home from work early that day. The only time I remember him doing that for me. He sat on the edge of my bed and held out a small velvet box. Inside was a silver bracelet. Thin chain. My name engraved on the clasp. MYRA. I could feel each letter with my thumb. "Happy birthday, kid," he said. "This one's just for you." Just for me. 3 words I had never heard before in that house. I wore that bracelet every single day for 22 years. The engraving faded. The clasp bent twice, and I fixed it both times with needle-nose pliers. It was the one piece of proof that my father, at some point, had seen me. That same year, Judith started bringing Victoria to social events. Victoria was 5, blonde curls, big smile, easy laugh. Donors loved her. Church friends pinched her cheeks. Judith noticed. A switch flipped. From that year forward, every family event became a Victoria showcase. My high school graduation fell on the same Saturday as Victoria's spring dance recital. Victoria was 10. 10. Judith chose the recital. Gerald showed up to my graduation, sat in the last row, clapped when my name was called, drove home without saying much. At dinner, Judith showed everyone Victoria's recital video on her phone. Nobody asked about my diploma. That bracelet stayed on my wrist for 22 years. The engraving faded. My father's voice faded faster. I used to wonder what happened to the man who sat on my bed and said, "This one's just for you." Somewhere between that birthday and the day I graduated, Gerald Enfield chose peace over his own daughter. And once you choose silence that long, it stops being a choice. It becomes who you are. 4 years before the night that changed everything, my father's company nearly collapsed. Gerald lost a major contract with the state. Cash flow dried up. Debt hit $1.2 million. I found out because Dad called me at 11 on a Thursday night. The only time he ever called past 9. His voice cracked. He said, "I don't know what to do, Myra." I did. Through my work at the engineering firm, I had spent 2 years collaborating with Hargrove Development Group, one of the largest commercial builders in New England. I knew their VP of operations. I knew what they needed. I made one call, set up a meeting, walked Gerald through the pitch over the phone. Hargrove signed a $3.4 million contract with Enfield and Associates. The company survived. But here is what happened next. Judith turned the signing dinner into a networking event. Victoria wore a cocktail dress and worked the room. She charmed the Hargrove executives, laughed at their jokes, posed for photos. When Gerald stood to make a toast, he raised his glass and said, "To my daughter, who made this all possible." Every eye went to Victoria. She smiled. Modest. Graceful. I sat at the end of the table. Nobody corrected the record. I had the original emails. My name, my contact, my introduction. Saved in a folder I never opened again. I told myself, family does not keep score. And I believed it. For 4 years, I believed it. I let them rewrite the story because I thought, if I have to prove my worth to my own family, what kind of family is that? I know the answer now. But back then, I was still holding a bracelet and hoping. Here is where I was when the real trouble started. 32. 36 weeks pregnant. Living in a 2-bedroom townhouse in Hartford with Nathan Reeves, my husband. Nathan was a firefighter. Station 12, B shift. Big hands, calm voice, the kind of man who speaks in short sentences and means every word. We got married when I was 29. Small ceremony. Dolores made the cake. My parents came. Judith wore white. Nobody said anything about it. Our life was simple. Nathan worked 48-hour shifts. I worked at the firm until my 8th month, then started leave. We were not rich. We were steady. 2 incomes, a paid-off Honda, and a nursery. I painted myself, sage green, because I read somewhere it calms babies. Victoria, meanwhile, had leveled up. She was engaged to Derek Blaine, 34, businessman, smooth talker, the kind of man who checks his reflection in your wine glass. Derek paid for Victoria's penthouse downtown. He bought her a BMW for her birthday. She drove it to Dad's office and parked in the visitor spot like she owned the building. Judith called Victoria every single day, sometimes twice. They planned brunches, coordinated outfits, discussed table settings for events that were 6 months away. Judith called me about twice a month. The conversations lasted under 4 minutes and always ended the same way. "So, anything new? Oh, before I forget, did I tell you Victoria's engagement ring is 2.5 carats? I stopped counting the ways my mother reminded me where I ranked. I had a baby coming. I had Nathan. I had Dolores, who called every Sunday just to ask what I had eaten that week. Then Victoria called, out of nowhere, a Wednesday afternoon. "Hey, I need to ask you something. It's about the engagement party." Victoria's engagement party was not a party. It was a casting call. She called to invite me, but the instructions told me everything. "Can you come early to help set up? And maybe don't wear anything too casual. There will be investors." I was 36 weeks pregnant. She wanted me to arrange centerpieces. I went anyway. Because that is what I did. I showed up. I carried chairs. I folded napkins into shapes I learned from a YouTube video at midnight. Nathan offered to come, but his shift started at 6. I told him I would be fine. I believed it. The house looked like a magazine spread. Judith had hired a caterer, 2 bartenders, a string quartet in the living room, 30 guests. half of them business contacts Derek had compiled on a spreadsheet. This was not a celebration of love. It was a client dinner wrapped in a proposal story. I arrived at 4. Judith met me in the kitchen. She scanned me, swollen ankles, plain navy dress, hair pulled back, and said, "You look tired. Maybe sit in the back?" I sat in the back. When the guests arrived, Judith positioned herself at the front door. "Welcome. Come in. Come in. I want you to meet my daughter Victoria and her brilliant fiancé Derek." She said this 14 times. I counted. Not once did she mention me. A woman in her 50s, pale blue jacket, pearl earrings, spotted me across the room. "Excuse me, are you part of the family?" I nodded. She looked confused. Judith swept in. "Oh, yes, that's Myra. She's just helping out." The woman held my gaze for a second longer than polite. I looked away first. Then Derek found me by the bar. Derek leaned against the counter with a glass of bourbon he had barely touched. Presentation prop. He smiled the way salesmen do. Wide, practiced, aimed. "So, Myra, Victoria tells me you're a structural engineer." "I am." "Interesting." He swirled the bourbon. "I was looking into your father's company records, the Hargrove contract. That saved the whole operation, didn't it?" "It helped." "Victoria told me she set that up." I did not blink. "Did she?" He studied me. "But a buddy of mine at Hargrove mentioned an Enfield woman, an engineer. He said she made the introduction." He paused. "That wasn't Victoria, was it?" I picked up my water glass. "You should ask Victoria." He laughed. Short, clipped, like a receipt printing. "I think I just got my answer." Derek walked away. I stood at that bar and felt something shift. He knew. He had done his research. And he was measuring me the way people measure tools. Not to admire them, but to figure out how to use them. The toast came at 8. Judith stood before 30 people, champagne flute raised, and spoke for 3 minutes about Victoria. Our daughter this, our daughter that. She used the phrase 5 times. She did not say my name. At the end, a guest asked, "Where's the rest of the family?" Judith tilted her head, smiled. "We can only afford one daughter tonight." Laughter. Light, social, forgettable to everyone but me. Nathan had arrived 10 minutes earlier. He stood by the doorway, still in his uniform jacket. He did not laugh. His jaw tightened. I felt his hand on my elbow. "Say the word." I shook my head. "Not here. Not now." I twisted the silver bracelet on my wrist without thinking. I should have left that night. But 3 weeks later, something happened that made the engagement party look like a warm-up. 3 weeks passed. I was 39 weeks pregnant. Due in 4 days. The baby had dropped. I could feel her pressing low, heavy, impatient. Gerald called me on a Tuesday evening. He never called on Tuesdays. He never called at all, unless Judith made him. "Your mother is hosting a dinner this Saturday. Big investors. Derek put it together. The Patterson Group. $5 million potential deal. Could be the biggest contract the company has ever signed." "Dad, I'm due in 4 days." 5 seconds of silence. I heard him breathe. I heard the TV in the background. Some financial news channel Judith kept on to feel important. "I know, sweetheart. I'm sure it'll be fine." "Fine? Your mother just needs the evening to go smoothly. She was wondering if you could come by early. Help manage the seating." 39 weeks pregnant. Due in 4 days. And my father was asking me to sort place cards. "I can't promise I'll be there, Dad." "I understand." He did not understand. He understood Judith. I hung up and called Nathan at the station. He picked up on the second ring. "What's wrong?" "Nothing yet. But if something happens Saturday, I might be on my own. My parents are hosting their investor dinner." Nathan was quiet for a moment. Then, "You won't be on your own. I'll leave early if I have to." His chief, Tom Galloway, heard the conversation. Later that night, Nathan texted me. "Chief said go whenever I need to. Family first." Family first. A fire chief I had met twice said that faster than my own parents ever had. Saturday was 4 days away. The baby was 4 days away. And the two collided exactly when you think they did. Saturday came like a slow-motion collision. The Enfield house was transformed. I saw it from the driveway. I had come against my better judgment because Gerald had called again that morning and said, "Your mother needs you." 3 words designed to make me obey. 16 place settings, linen napkins, candles I recognized from the Christmas catalog Judith kept on her nightstand, catering van out back. 2 servers in black aprons prepping a charcuterie board the size of a coffee table. Victoria stood in the foyer in a red off-the-shoulder dress, hair curled, diamond earrings, engagement gift from Derek. She looked like a magazine cover. She looked like everything my mother had trained her to be. Judith came down the stairs in a navy sheath dress. Jasmine perfume hit me before she reached the landing. She adjusted an earring, saw me, and said, "You're here. Good. Can you check the place cards in the dining room?" "No, hello?" "No, how are you feeling?" "No, when did the doctor say again?" "Just place cards." I checked the cards. 16 names. Mine was not among them. "Mom, there's no card for me." She barely looked up. "Oh, we ran out of the ivory ones. Just pull up a chair near the kitchen. You'll be more comfortable there anyway." Near the kitchen, where the servers worked. I set the cards. A contraction tightened across my lower back. Mild. I steadied myself on the dining table and breathed through it. 6 seconds. Then it passed. I checked my phone. Nathan. "Shift change at 10. I can leave by 9:30 if you need me. Just say the word." I typed back, "I'm fine." I was not fine, but I was still pretending. The guests arrived at 7. Derek worked the room like a campaign manager. Firm handshakes. First names memorized from a spreadsheet. He introduced Gerald to the Patterson Group's lead partner. A man named Victor Patterson, late 60s, silver hair, old money handshake. His wife, Margaret Patterson, was the woman in the pale blue jacket from the engagement party. I recognized her. She recognized me. She found me during the salad course. I was sitting at the end of the table next to the empty chair Nathan would have filled. She lowered her voice. "We met at the engagement party. You're the engineer." "I am." "I know Hargrove's VP of Operations, Dan Whitfield. He mentioned an Enfield woman once. Not Victoria. You." I picked up my water glass. That was a different time. She studied me. 60 seconds of silence while the rest of the table laughed at Derek's anecdote about sailing. Then Margaret Patterson said something I did not expect. "You don't look like someone who stays behind the scenes. You look like someone who was put there." I opened my mouth. The second contraction hit. Harder this time. I gripped the edge of the table. My vision blurred for a moment. I exhaled through my teeth. Margaret reached for my arm. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, just tired." I smiled. She did not believe me. The contraction released after 8 seconds. I counted. 8 seconds was longer than the first, and the gap was shorter. 12 minutes between the first and now. I pulled out my phone under the table. Nathan had texted, "How's it going?" I stared at the screen. I typed, "I think it's starting." Then I deleted it and typed, "I'm fine." I was still protecting everyone but myself. 9:15. The third contraction rolled through me like a cramp wrapped in concrete. I set down my fork, gripped the napkin in my lap. Counted. 9 minutes since the last one. Regular. Stronger. I knew what this was. Early labor. Not Braxton Hicks. Not false alarm. My daughter was coming. I stood. My chair scraped the floor. 2 people glanced up. I walked to the living room, where Judith was holding court with 3 investors' wives, a champagne flute in her right hand, her left gesturing toward a framed photo of Victoria on the mantel. I touched her elbow. "Mom, can I talk to you for a second?" She followed me to the hallway. Barely. She kept one eye on the living room. "Mom, I think I'm in labor. Contractions are 9 minutes apart." Judith looked at me. Then she looked back at the living room. Then at me again. "Myra, not now." We're in the middle of something. I need someone to drive me to the hospital. Where's your husband? 40 minutes out. He's finishing his shift. Then wait. She straightened her necklace. You're probably overreacting. First babies take forever. Sit down, have some water. Mom. Myra. Her voice dropped. Flat. Final. The same voice she used when I was 12 and asked why Victoria got a new dress for Easter and I got last year's. I said not now. Another contraction. I grabbed the hallway table. A vase of white lilies trembled. Judith watched it happen. She did not move. I looked at my mother's face and understood something I had been refusing to see for 29 years. She was not going to help me. Not in 40 minutes. Not in 40 years. I straightened up. I walked to the dining room. Gerald was pouring Bordeaux for Victor Patterson. His hands were steady. His smile was steady. Everything about Gerald Enfield was steady because being steady was easier than being honest. Dad, I need to go to the hospital. Now. He looked at me. Then he looked at Judith, who had followed me back in. Judith gave a small shake of her head. Almost imperceptible. But I caught it. I had been reading that signal my entire life. Honey, can it wait an hour? We're right in the middle of the... My contractions are 8 minutes apart. Derek appeared at the doorway, tie loosened, drink in hand. He had been listening. She can take a cab, can't she? We're about to close. And then my mother said the words I will hear for the rest of my life. She said them softly. She did not look up from the napkin she was refolding. Call a cab, Myra. We're busy. The dining room held 16 people. Not one of them looked at me. The servers kept moving. The candles kept burning. Jasmine perfume hung in the air like a lie. My mother's perfume reached me before her words did. Both were cold. I stood in that silence for 3 seconds. Maybe 4. Long enough to memorize every face in that room. Long enough to understand that I was not being ignored. I was being erased. I picked up my car keys from the hallway table. I walked to the front door. The string quartet had packed up an hour ago, so the only sound was my shoes on the marble floor. Nobody followed. Nobody called my name. I opened the door, stepped into the October air, and pulled it shut behind me. The latch clicked. That click was the last sound I made in my parents' house. I stood in that hallway, 39 weeks pregnant, and not a single person in a room of 16 stood up. If you have ever been the one nobody came for, whether it was a hospital room, a graduation, or just a bad Tuesday night, you know exactly what that silence sounds like. Hit subscribe if you're still with me, because what happened next changed everything. 9:40 p.m. October. The driveway was dark except for the porch light my mother had turned on for guests. Not for me. My hands were shaking. I fumbled with the key fob twice before the Honda unlocked. Inside, the seat was cold. I adjusted the mirror and caught my own face. Pale, jaw set, eyes wet, but not crying. I was not going to cry. Another contraction. I braced against the steering wheel. 7 minutes since the last one. Getting closer. I called Nathan. He answered before the first ring finished. I'm driving myself to the hospital. What? No. Myra, I'm leaving now. I'm 40 minutes out. I can't wait. 18 minutes to St. Mary's. I'll be there before you. Myra. Nathan. I'm going. I drove. 18 minutes that lasted a year. The streetlights blurred. Every red light felt like a punishment. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles turned white, pressed the gas pedal with my swollen feet in those old driving shoes, the brown leather flats I had bought at 25, the soles worn thin from years of job sites. My right foot pressed the gas between contractions. My left foot pressed the floor mat like a prayer. I counted red lights. 4. I counted contractions. 3. I counted the number of times my phone rang from anyone with the last name Enfield. 0. St. Mary's Hospital, the parking lot. I pulled in crooked and did not care. A nurse met me at the entrance. Red hair, mid-40s, name tag that read, Colleen. Where's your support person? He's coming. Who dropped you off? I drove. She looked at me. 39 weeks, sweating, shaking, alone. She did not ask another question. She took my arm and walked me inside. 18 minutes. I will remember every second. 10:20 p.m. Labor and delivery. Room 4. The bed was cold. The lights were bright. A contraction hit 5 minutes after the last one. They were getting closer. Getting louder. Colleen hooked up the monitor and checked my cervix. 4 centimeters. Active labor. She wrote something in my chart. I saw the top line. Patient arrived alone. Self-transported. No emergency contact present at admission. She set the chart down. Your husband? 40 minutes. He's a firefighter. He's coming. Okay. She pulled the blanket over my legs. You're doing fine. I'll be right outside. She left. The room hummed. I lay there with my daughter pressing down and my phone on the bedside table, screen still lit from the last text I never sent. That is when I saw the notification. Enfield family group chat. Victoria had accidentally re-added me the week before. She needed to send a seating chart and forgot to remove me after. I had not opened it. I almost did not open it then. But labor strips you down. You stop pretending. You stop performing. You lie there in a hospital gown, alone at 10 p.m., and you read what your family says when they think you cannot hear. Victoria, 9:42 p.m. OMG, Myra just made a scene about going to the hospital. Judith, 9:44 p.m. I told her to call a cab. She's always dramatic. Derek, 9:45 p.m. Patterson almost walked out. Control your daughter, Gerald. Gerald, 9:47 p.m. She left. It's handled. She left. It is handled. 3 words from the man who gave me a silver bracelet at 10 years old and told me it was just for me. I looked at that bracelet on my wrist. For the first time in 22 years, it felt heavy, like it was made of something other than silver, like it was made of proof that people can love you once and still let you drive yourself to the hospital. Nathan burst through the door at 10:35, boots on, soot on his collar. He grabbed my hand. I'm here. 2 words. The right ones. Eloise Reeves was born at 3:17 in the morning. Sunday. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. 10 fingers. 10 toes. A full head of dark hair that made Colleen say, well, she came ready. Nathan cried, hands over his mouth, eyes red, shoulders shaking. He looked at our daughter like she was the first real thing he had ever seen. Colleen teared up too. She had been in the room for 6 hours. She held the extra blanket and said, Good job, Mom. I held Eloise on my chest, skin to skin, her heartbeat against mine. I did not say anything for a long time. I just breathed. My phone sat on the bedside table. I did not check it until Nathan fell asleep in the recliner around 5 a.m., Eloise on his chest, both of them breathing slow. 0 calls from the Enfield family, 0 texts, 0 voicemails. The group chat had moved on. Victoria had posted an Instagram story from the dinner, chandelier, champagne, gold filter. Caption, Best night ever. Best night ever. While I delivered her niece 18 minutes away. Dolores arrived at 6 a.m. She carried a tote bag with chicken soup, a quilt her mother made in 1987, and a stuffed bear wearing a tiny firefighter helmet. Let me see my grandbaby. She held Eloise with the confidence of a woman who had raised 4 children. Then she turned to me, one hand on my cheek. You did good, sweetheart. Now rest. I've got her. She sat in the recliner Nathan had vacated. She hummed. She did not check her phone. She did not ask about the dinner. She was just there. 2 grandmothers. One asleep after a party. One holding my daughter at sunrise. That was the morning I understood the difference between family you are born into and family that shows up. Monday. Nothing. Tuesday. Nothing. Wednesday. Nothing. 3 days after Eloise was born, not a single member of the Enfield family had called, texted, or sent so much as a wilted bouquet from a gas station. I spent 2 nights in the hospital. Came home Wednesday afternoon. Nathan carried Eloise in the car seat. Dolores had cleaned the house, stocked the fridge, and left a note on the kitchen counter. Casserole in the oven. Call if you need anything. Even at 3 a.m., especially at 3 a.m. That first night home, I sat in the rocking chair, nursing Eloise at 2 in the morning. Nathan was asleep. The house was dark except for the nightlight in the nursery. The sage green room I had painted myself. I looked down at the silver bracelet on my left wrist, and I realized I was waiting. Again. Like I had waited my whole life. Waiting for a call, a text, a how are you, a congratulations, we're so sorry we missed it. Waiting for something that had never come and never would. I unclasped the bracelet, held it in my palm. 22 years. Every scratch, every dent, every time I had rubbed the fading engraving to remind myself I once mattered. I walked to the bedroom closet, found an old shoebox, set the bracelet inside, closed the lid, put it on the top shelf. Nathan stirred. Have you heard from your parents? No. He was quiet. He got up and made tea. He did not push. I sat with my daughter in the dark and made a decision. Not in anger, not in revenge, in clarity. My daughter will not grow up waiting for people who never come. That Wednesday night, Victoria posted on Instagram, "Anti-vibes coming soon," with a heart emoji. She still had not called. Thursday, 2 p.m., 5 days after Eloise was born. I was on the couch, Eloise asleep on my chest. The house smelled like formula and Dolores's casserole. Quiet, warm, safe. Then, a knock. I opened the door. Jasmine perfume hit me first, then the Nordstrom bag, then the smile. Judith Enfield stood on my porch in a cream blazer and gold earrings, hair freshly blown out, lipstick precise. She looked like she was arriving at a charity luncheon. Surprise! I came to see the baby. She held up the Nordstrom bag, pink tissue paper spilling over the top. Victoria told me you already delivered. Why didn't you call? I stood in the doorway. I did not step aside. Why didn't I call? I repeated. I did call. Saturday night, 9:15 p.m. You told me to call a cab. Her smile flickered. A micro-adjustment. I had seen it 1,000 times. The recalculation, the pivot, the new angle. Oh, that. Myra, we were in the middle of the Patterson dinner. You understand. I looked at my mother. Really looked. The jasmine, the blazer, the gift bag timed 5 days late. Everything about her was a presentation. Everything was calculated. What baby? Her face went blank. What do you mean, what baby? You didn't have a granddaughter Saturday night. You didn't have one Sunday, or Monday, or Tuesday, or Wednesday. So what baby are you here to see? Myra, you're being ridiculous. I'm being clear. I closed the door. Not hard, not soft, just closed. The latch clicked. Through the door, I heard her breathe. I smelled jasmine fading. The Nordstrom bag sat on my porch for 3 hours. Nathan brought it inside. I never opened it. Some gifts arrived too late to be anything but evidence. 20 minutes after I closed the door, Gerald called. Your mother is very upset. I know. She just wanted to see the baby. She had the chance to see me Saturday night. She chose a dinner. Pause. I could hear Judith in the background. High-pitched, staccato, the sound she makes when someone denies her a front-row seat. That's not fair, Myra. What's not fair is driving yourself to the hospital at 39 weeks because your family told you to call a cab. That's not fair, Dad. Gerald went quiet. The kind of quiet that means a man has heard the truth and is deciding whether to acknowledge it or pretend the call dropped. He chose neither. He just breathed. Your mother wants to come back tomorrow. She can want whatever she wants. The answer is no. He hung up. He always hung up when he ran out of ways to avoid the conversation. Victoria texted 20 minutes later. Mom is crying. Are you happy now? I stared at the screen. The crying. The guilt. The pivot to, look what you did. I had watched this playbook my entire life. Judith did something hurtful. Someone reacted. Judith cried. And suddenly the person who got hurt became the villain. Not this time. Nathan took my phone from the table. Enough for today. Yeah. He put the phone in the kitchen drawer, made dinner. Grilled cheese and tomato soup. The meal he defaulted to whenever the world got heavy. We ate in silence. Good silence. The kind that does not need filling. I thought that was the end of it. I thought closing a door was the hardest part. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, my mother did something I never expected. Judith did not accept rejection. She repackaged it. Within a week, she had called every relative in our family and told them a story. Not the real one. Hers. Myra is struggling with postpartum depression. She won't let me see my own grandchild. I'm so worried about her. It was genius. She flipped the script. I went from a daughter setting boundaries to a sick woman keeping a grandmother from her grandchild. The calls started on a Monday. By Wednesday, I had received 11. Aunt Linda. Your mother is heartbroken, Myra. Uncle Robert. She just wants to hold the baby. Is that so terrible? 2 women from Judith's church group sent flowers and a card that said, "Praying for your family's healing." I did not yell. I did not cry. I did not explain myself. I answered every single call with the same sentence. Ask her what happened at 9:15 on a Saturday night. That was it. 9:15. Saturday. 5 words and a timestamp. I did not elaborate. I did not accuse. I gave them enough to go looking and nothing more. Not one person called me back. Here is what Judith did not plan for. I had stopped playing the game. For 29 years, her strategy worked because I stayed quiet. I absorbed. I waited. I let her control the story. But silence only works when the other person cooperates. I was not cooperating anymore. I was not fighting either. I was doing something worse. I was giving people a single fact and letting them sit with it. Aunt Linda never called again. Uncle Robert texted once. I didn't know the whole story. I typed, "I know," and left it there. My mother's network of sympathy collapsed one conversation at a time, all because I told the truth in 9 words. 2 weeks after I closed the door, Gerald came alone. No call ahead, no warning. Just his Lincoln in my driveway at noon on a Tuesday, and a knock so soft I almost missed it. I opened the door. He looked 10 years older, wrinkled button down. Stubble. Gerald Enfield never had stubble. His eyes were bloodshot, and not from drinking. Can I come in? Just me. I let him in. I do not know why. Maybe because the last time I heard that tone in his voice was the night he called about the $1.2 million debt. Gerald only sounded honest when he was desperate. He sat on the couch. Eloise was asleep in the bassinet beside him. He stared at her for a long time. She's beautiful. I waited. Myra, I should have driven you to the hospital that night. Yes. Your mother was under a lot of pressure with Patterson. Dad, stop. He closed his mouth. Opened it. Closed it again. I just want things to go back to normal. This is normal. Saturday night was normal for you. It's not normal for me anymore. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out the silver bracelet. I recognized it immediately. I had taken it off that Wednesday night. Somehow, Gerald had found it. I found this on the shelf in your closet, when I came to check on the house. He had been in my house, while I was at the hospital, or after, I did not know. But he had gone into my closet and found the bracelet I had put away. He set it on the coffee table. The silver caught the light. 22 years of scratches. I remember giving you this. I remember too. He stood up. He did not promise to change. He did not say he would stand up to Judith. He walked to the door, put on his coat, and left. The bracelet sat on the coffee table. Not on my wrist. Not in a box. Just there. Between us. Like everything Gerald ever felt but never said. Nathan found the shoes on a Saturday morning. He was reorganizing the hall closet, the one near the front door where we threw everything we did not want to deal with. He pulled out my driving flats, the brown leather ones I had worn to the hospital. He sat on the bottom step of the staircase and held them in both hands. Hospital parking lot mud had dried into the leather. A dark scuff on the left toe from where I had hit the brake too hard during a contraction. The soles were cracked. He did not speak for 2 minutes. I know because I came out of the bedroom and found him sitting there, staring at those shoes like they were evidence. You drove 18 minutes in labor in these. It was not a question. Nathan. I'm not letting this go, Myra. He set the shoes down carefully. I know you want to handle it quiet. That's who you are. I respect it. But my family doesn't work that way. And our daughter isn't going to grow up wondering why Grandma Judith gets a free pass. He called Dolores that afternoon. I listened from the kitchen. Mom, we're doing the christening at Grace Community. Our church, our family, and if the Enfields want to come, they get an invitation. Not a seat at the table. Dolores's voice through the phone, clear as Sunday morning. You don't owe anyone the right to hurt your child. Remember that. Nathan hung up, looked at me. Pastor Williams already knows the situation. Front pew is reserved. Family only. What counts as family? He picked up the brown shoes. The people who show up. He put them in the closet. Gently, like he was filing proof. The christening was set for 3 weeks out. 62 seats. And a reckoning I did not plan, but could not stop. The invitations went out on Monday. Cream envelopes. Formal print. Grace Community Church. Sunday, November 12th, 10 a.m. The christening of Eloise Margaret Reeves. 40 invitations. Nathan's family. Our friends. Colleagues from my firm. 3 firefighters from Station 12. Nurse Colleen, who had held my arm the night Eloise arrived. The Enfields received 1 envelope, addressed to Gerald and Judith Enfield. No handwritten note. No warm regards. Just the facts. Judith called within an hour. Am I being treated like a stranger at my own granddaughter's christening? You're being treated like a guest. I deserve to be in the front row. I am her grandmother. You deserve a seat. That's what the invitation is. Myra, this is absurd. I am going to speak to Pastor. Pastor Williams is Nathan's pastor. He knows the situation. Silence. I could hear her recalculating. Judith always recalculated. She ran every conversation like a budget. What she could afford to concede, what she could leverage. Fine. We'll be there. But I'm bringing flowers. And a photographer. Bring whatever you want. The front pew is reserved. She hung up. I knew exactly what she was planning. She would arrive early. She would carry flowers like a processional. She would bring her own photographer and position herself next to the baby. She would turn a christening into a Judith Enfield production, the same way she turned an engagement party into a client dinner and a crisis into a cab ride. Victoria confirmed she was attending. Derek was unavailable. No explanation. It was the 3rd event he had skipped in a row. I noticed. Nathan noticed. Nobody said anything yet. 3 weeks out. 62 seats. And a front row with no name cards for the Enfield family. My mother showed up at my doorstep in jasmine perfume with a Nordstrom bag, as if 5 days of silence could be gift-wrapped away. And honestly, a year ago, I would have let her in. If you have ever held a door shut on someone who trained you to keep it open, you know that takes everything you have. Stick around. The christening is next. 3 days before the christening, an email changed everything. I was at the kitchen table. Eloise was in the bouncer beside me, chewing a teething ring. My laptop was open to a project report I was reviewing from home. The email landed at 2:14 p.m. Sender, Margaret Patterson. Subject: Something you should know. I opened it. Dear Myra, I wanted you to know that we have pulled out of the Enfield deal. After our conversation at the dinner, I did some research. The Hargrove introduction. That was yours, wasn't it? Dan Whitfield confirmed it. I don't do business with people who erase their own family. Below the message, she had attached 3 documents. Public records. Derek Blaine had 2 prior fraud complaints filed in Rhode Island. His real estate license in that state had been suspended 18 months ago. She had dug these up on her own. I read the email twice. Then I sat back. I had not asked Margaret Patterson to investigate. I had not told her my story. I had not lobbied or campaigned or played any angle. I had answered her question in a hallway at a dinner party. Honestly, that was all. I did not pull the thread. I just told the truth in a hallway. The thread unraveled on its own. I forwarded the email to Gerald. No message, no commentary. Subject line changed to, "You should know." I closed the laptop. That evening, Nathan and I ate dinner. Eloise slept through the whole meal, a miracle at 4 weeks old. At 9 p.m., my phone buzzed. Gerald's number. I let it ring. Then a text from Victoria. "What did you do?" From inside the Enfield house, even through a phone screen, I could hear the sound of Judith screaming. Gerald called the next morning. 7 a.m. I picked up because he never called that early unless something was on fire. This time, something was. "The Patterson deal is dead. $5 million, Myra, gone." "I know. Derek, there's something wrong with his license. Some complaint in Rhode Island. Did you know about this?" "I forwarded you the email. You could have warned us earlier." I let that sentence sit in the air for 3 full seconds. "You could have driven me to the hospital." Nothing. "Dad, Margaret Patterson pulled out because she learned the truth. Not because of me, because of what you let happen. The Hargrove credit. The dinner. All of it. Your mother thinks you did this on purpose." "My mother thinks everything I do is on purpose, except being born." Shuffling. A door opening. Then Judith's voice. Sharp. Close. Like she had ripped the phone from Gerald's hand. "You ruined this family. You always have been the ungrateful one. After everything we've done for you..." "What have you done for me, Mom?" My voice was level. Not cold. Not hot. Level. "Name one thing." "I'll wait." 3 seconds of silence. Then, "I gave you a home. You gave me an address. Dolores gave me a home." I heard Judith inhale. A sharp, wet sound. The sound of someone who has never been answered back and does not know what to do with it. "You'll regret this, Myra. Mark my words." "Maybe. But I won't regret driving myself to the hospital to have your granddaughter while you poured wine for strangers. That one is yours to carry." I hung up. Set the phone face down on the counter. My hands did not shake. Nathan looked at me from across the kitchen. "Okay. Okay." The christening was in 2 days. Saturday night. The night before the christening. Eloise was asleep in the bassinet. I stood in the kitchen doorway, watching Nathan wash the last dish. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before something big. "Are you ready?" he asked. "I've been ready since she told me we can only afford one daughter tonight." He turned off the faucet, dried his hands, walked over and kissed my forehead. "Whatever happens tomorrow, we go home after. That's the deal." I nodded. I went to the bedroom. From the closet shelf, I took down the shoebox. Inside, the silver bracelet. I held it under the lamp. The engraving was almost invisible now, just a ghost of letters. I placed the bracelet in a small box, the kind you get at a jewelry store. I tucked a card inside. I had written it that morning, in my neatest handwriting. "Dad, I kept this for 22 years. I don't need it anymore, but you should remember who you were when you gave it to me." I closed the box, set it on the nightstand. Nathan came in, saw the box, understood. "You know she'll make a scene," he said. "I know. That's her language. My language is showing up, doing right, and leaving when it's done." Dolores called at 9. "Everything's set at the church. Pastor Williams knows the situation. Front pew is for family, real family." I hung up and lay down, stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, my daughter would be christened in front of 62 people. My mother would be in the room. My father would be in the room. And for the first time in my life, I would not pretend that everything was fine. Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Grace Community Church, 62 seats. And a front row my parents would not be sitting in. Grace Community Church sat on a hill at the edge of town. White clapboard, stained glass. A bell tower that had not worked in 20 years but still looked the part. Inside, the light came in gold. November sun through colored glass, falling on wooden pews and fresh flower arrangements. Dolores had set out at 7 a.m. I wore a white blouse, hair pulled back. No jewelry. For the first time in 22 years, my left wrist was bare. I noticed it every time I moved my hand. Like a phantom limb. Like something I had outgrown. Eloise wore a christening gown, ivory cotton, hand-stitched lace at the hem. Dolores's gift. She had spent 3 weeks sewing it. Every baby in the Reeves family has worn something I made, she said. Eloise is no different. Front pew. Nathan. Dolores. Nathan's brother Kevin and his wife Stacy. Nathan's aunt Ruth. Third pew. Nurse Colleen. She wore a green dress and carried a card she had signed herself. Fifth pew. 4 colleagues from my engineering firm. 2 firefighters from Station 12. 10:05. The main door opened. Heels on hardwood. I did not need to turn around. Judith Enfield walked in carrying a bouquet of white roses and wearing a pastel blue dress that probably cost more than the entire flower arrangement budget. Behind her, a photographer. A man in a black vest with a camera around his neck. Behind him, Victoria, eyes swollen, mascara already smudged. Gerald came last. Gray suit, tight jaw. Judith walked straight toward the front pew, heels clicking. Roses held like a scepter. Nathan stood. He did not move aside. He did not raise his voice. Third row from the back, Mrs. Enfield. Those are your seats. Judith stopped. Excuse me. Gerald's face went pale. Victoria grabbed Judith's arm. Mom, let's just sit down. Judith sat. Third row from the back. The roses rested on her lap like a prop she had not been cued to use. Pastor Williams stood at the front. Gray beard. Kind eyes. He had baptized Nathan as a baby and married us 3 years ago. He began the way he always did. Slowly, warmly, without hurry. We are gathered to welcome Eloise Margaret Reeves into this community of faith and love. He looked at Nathan and me. Who presents this child? Nathan. We do. Dolores stood. Her family does. No Enfield stood. No Enfield was asked to. The ceremony continued. Scripture. A hymn I did not know but hummed along to. Colleen dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Dolores held her hands in her lap, steady as stone. Then Pastor Williams asked, Who will guide this child in love and truth? Nathan stood. Dolores stood. Kevin and Stacy stood. Aunt Ruth stood. From the back of the church, Judith watched 4 strangers to her, stand for her granddaughter. She could not take it. She rose. Her chair scraped the floor. The sound cut through the hymn like a break. I am her grandmother. Her voice carried. 62 heads turned. I should be up there. This is my granddaughter. The church went silent. The organist stopped mid-chord. I turned. Slowly. I found my mother's face in the back row, mascara running, lips trembling, roses crushed against her chest. I did not raise my voice. I did not step forward. I stayed exactly where I was, Eloise in my arms, and said 2 words. Sit down, Mom. Judith's mouth opened. Don't you dare. Nathan's voice came from beside me, low, even, the voice he uses in burning buildings. Ma'am, please sit down. Judith sat. Her hands were shaking. The photographer lowered his camera. He had not taken a single shot. The fellowship hall after the ceremony smelled like coffee and lemon pound cake. Dolores had baked 3. Kevin's wife brought cookies shaped like ducks. Someone from the fire station brought a banner. Welcome, Eloise. People hugged me, shook Nathan's hand, held Eloise and said things like, She's got your eyes, and hold on to this age, it goes fast. I was pouring coffee when Jasmine hit me for the last time. Judith stood 3 feet away, mascara streaked, hair still perfect. Nothing shook Judith's hair. Her voice was low, shaking, caught between grief and fury. How could you humiliate me like that? In front of strangers? I set the coffee pot down. Strangers? These people were in the delivery room. These people brought soup at 6 a.m. These people answered their phones at 9:15 on a Saturday night. I am your mother. That means something. It should have. Saturday night was your chance to prove it. You told me to call a cab. Gerald appeared at her shoulder. His face was gray. Myra, your mother made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. I looked at him directly. Choosing a dinner over your daughter's labor is a decision, and I'm allowed to make mine. Victoria stepped forward, eyes red, voice cracking. You're tearing this family apart. This family was apart. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. The room had gone quiet. 62 people. Coffee cups suspended. No one chewed. No one moved. The banner, "Welcome, Eloise," hung above us like a headline. I did not shout. I did not cry. I stood at the counter and spoke in the same voice I use in engineering reviews. Clear. Measured. On the record. Judith opened her mouth. Nothing came out. For the first time in her life, Judith Enfield had no audience to perform for. I reached into Nathan's jacket pocket. He had carried the box all morning. Small. Black. Jewelry store size. I held it out to Gerald. Dad, I kept this for 22 years. He took the box. Opened it. The silver bracelet caught the overhead light. Scratched. Thin. The engraving almost gone. His fingers trembled. He read the card. I watched his eyes move across the words. He closed them. For a moment, standing in a fellowship hall with 62 witnesses and a wife who was unraveling, Gerald Enfield looked like the man who sat on the edge of a 10-year-old's bed and said, "This one's just for you." But only for a moment. I turned to Judith. "Mom, you said we can only afford one daughter." I paused. "You were right. You chose. And so did I." "Myra, please." She reached for my arm. Tears. Real or performed? I could not tell anymore. It did not matter. Then Colleen stood. Third pew. Green dress. Hospital badge still on the lanyard around her neck. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. I was the nurse on duty that night. She came in alone. 39 weeks. She drove herself. No one called. No one came. I wrote it in the chart. The room held its breath. Judith looked at Colleen, then at the room, then at every face that was not looking away. Not one person stood with her. Gerald closed the bracelet box. "Judith, let's go." "Gerald, say something." And my father, in the quietest voice I have ever heard him use, repeated the same words he typed in a group chat at 9:47 on a Saturday night. "She left. It's handled." He walked to the door. Judith followed. Victoria followed. The photographer packed his camera. He had not taken a single photograph. The roses Judith brought sat on the back pew. Abandoned. Petals already browning at the edges. The door closed behind them. The church exhaled. Dolores walked over. She did not say much. She never did when it mattered most. She took my hand. Held it. "You don't owe anyone the right to hurt your child. Remember that." Pastor Williams came next. He placed a hand on Eloise's head, still asleep through everything, as if she already knew the hard part was over. "Some families start at birth," he said. "Some start when you choose to show up." Colleen found me by the cake table. She squeezed my arm. "She's perfect, and she's got a mom who drove herself to the hospital for her. She'll be okay." I looked around the room. Kevin was restacking chairs. Stacy was wrapping leftover cookies in foil. The firefighters from Station 12 were arguing about football. Dolores was holding Eloise, humming something I did not recognize, but already felt like home. This was my family. Not the one on the pew in the back. Not the ones who walked out the door. Nathan put his hand on my shoulder. "Ready to go home?" "Yeah. Let's go home." We drove in silence. Eloise slept in the car seat. The November trees were bare along Route 9, branches black against a white sky. I did not check my phone. I did not wonder who would call. For the first time in 32 years, I was not waiting for anything. We pulled into the driveway. Nathan carried Eloise inside. I stood for a moment on the porch, looking at nothing, feeling everything. Then I went inside and closed the door. 2 months later, the dominoes fell. Margaret Patterson's withdrawal triggered a chain reaction. Without the $5 million deal, Derek's involvement came under scrutiny. Gerald's accountant pulled records. 2 prior fraud complaints surfaced, both in Rhode Island, both involving misrepresented property values. Derek's real estate license in that state had been suspended for 18 months. He had never mentioned it. Victoria ended the engagement in December. She showed up at our parents' house on a Tuesday, dropped the ring on the kitchen counter, and drove away in the BMW that Derek was still making payments on. But Derek was not the only problem. Gerald had signed a personal guarantee on an $800,000 line of credit that Derek had arranged through a development firm in Stamford. When the deal collapsed, the firm called the note. Gerald could not cover it. Enfield and Associates lost 2 major contracts in January. Clients cited reputational concerns. The company that Hargrove had saved 4 years ago, the one I saved, began to fold for the second time. This time, there was no one to call. Judith was quietly asked to step down from the church fundraising board. Personal matters, they said. She resigned the country club membership the same week. 2 pillars of the Judith Enfield brand, gone in 7 days. Victoria called me in February. First time since the christening. Derek is gone. Mom and Dad might lose the house. Can you help? I'm sorry about Derek. But I can't fix what I didn't break. Gerald filed Chapter 11 in March. The Colonial in Westbrook went on the market. I read the listing online. 4 bedrooms. In-ground pool. 2-car garage. Asking price. $640,000. I recognized the kitchen where I had folded napkins into shapes for people who did not know my name. I did not feel revenge. I did not feel relief. I felt tired. I picked up my daughter and we went for a walk. New shoes. Nathan bought them for me a week after the christening. Brown leather. Good soles. He set them by the door without saying anything. I wore them every day after that. To the park with Eloise. To the grocery store. To the firm when I went back to work in January. New ground. New shoes. I used to think family meant staying. Through the silence. Through the humiliation. Through Saturday nights when nobody came. But now I know. Family means showing up. And some people just don't. That is my story. One Saturday night. One phone call nobody answered. And a christening that drew the line. If this reminded you that your boundaries are not selfish, share it with someone who needs to hear that. Hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.